Hey guys, welcome back to the Noble Broker. On the Noble Broker, we have guests and we talk with Noble. That means both clear, unfiltered, raw information, because we in real estate are more than pretty faces and pretty people who show pretty homes. We're real people with real stories and real information. So we're coming back to you with another episode here today. And today you've got my co-host with me now, Mr. Nathan Klutznick. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
And let's just jump right in. Everybody is talking right now in the real estate industry about one topic. They're saying August 17th is like this day that's going to live in history of the day that everything changed. You go back to 2008 and talk about the Great Recession and how things changed in the marketplace from that. But now we've got August 17th, 2024 is that new date in this timeline of real estate, and things are changing, right?
Absolutely. It's somewhat eerie when you think about 2008 or 2009 comparisons, but most of that, I think, so far at least, has just been mental. You know, a lot of the agents, at least that I've seen or talked to or seen comments on, realize they woke up on August 18th. They still have clients. They're still out there working. But, I mean, there's no doubt that we're facing incredible changes right now. And there's a lot of anxiety in the market. I don't know how you feel coming back. Box full, lots of questions over the weekend, new issues. I know there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of uncertainty in the market. So,
you know, it's funny, leading up to August 17th, those 3 weeks, right? We knew this was coming in the first quarter of 2024. We had like a 6-month lead time before this actual date with practice changes was implemented. And the 3 weeks leading up to August 17th is probably the 3 busiest weeks I have ever had in 17 years.
You mean in terms of support or transactions or both?
Definitely support. It's agents having questions. You know, there's change and there is so much unknown on how things will apply for individual circumstances.
Yeah. I think it feels really good to have our support team in place and you with all your knowledge and all of us working together to help our agents, but it's also been nerve-wracking when we don't have all the information either. No one does, right? So I know we've been leaning on other brokers have been leaning on us. There's just a lot of unknowns, and it feels like we have this like overarching power breathing down our back. You know, a lot of these attorneys that, you know, I personally think are out there for their own good, right? Working with the Department of Justice, making all these changes are still breathing down our back, even though the change has just been implemented. You know, they didn't give us more than 24 hours before they issued a statement saying, we're going to watch every single thing you do. And as a business owner, I'm sitting here going, good, watch it, but I don't know what I'm doing. Any clear guidance would be great, right? So I know that all state associations, local associations, everyone had to scramble to kind of put this together. And it seemed like we had a lot of time, but it certainly didn't feel that way the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you felt, but...
No, for sure. I mean, when you're leading up to this date of change where everything has to happen overnight, there was really no guidance on should you start this August 1st, should you start this back in June and help people kind of practice and lead into it. No, it's just on one day, everything changed, poof.
Right. You remember when we had the Dodd-Frank changes on closing statements, settlement statements and everything? We had probably at least a 30, 60-day training period on all those document changes, and I know our title company had to go through extensive retraining, but at least we had the ability to go through that training. Right here, everyone's scared, right? Everyone is afraid of the liability and worried about protecting the consumer. I mean, at the end of the day, this has made it a lot more challenging to protect the consumer and serve the consumer. But look at the resilience of our agents here pushing forward. I mean, you've seen our top agents are seeing this as an opportunity to get more market share. And, you know, when you just drill down on it in terms of, you know, stop looking at it just as a realtor and more just overall business, there's always these changes that come in business. We've experienced so many cycles together, you and I. I mean, we've been working together for a long time. From when we started together in the Great Recession, but just little things, whether it's an interest rate change, something seasonal. This is one of those pivotal moments, I think, in our industry where we have an opportunity to rise, of course, but there's still this cloud over us of uncertainty because we don't have the answers. We don't know where the DOJ is going with this yet. It feels, and I've read a lot of reports that they're kind of using Catchmark and these attorneys as like their proxy. Because they're going through appeals with NAR, and potentially now I think I read that NAR petitioned for it to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And we're just here trying to operate a business, right? We're trying to protect our sellers, protect our buyers, create an environment where agents can thrive. But it makes it challenging. I mean, we're working through it well, but like I said, it just feels like there's this cloud of uncertainty looming over us.
I think a big difference is when something becomes a law and something becomes like a rule and a policy. So all of these changes, they're not laws, right? It's just rules and policies that NAR is governing and passing down through the states, the locals, and the broker members.
Based on their settlement agreement.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So when you put...
But what did we always do before? We followed NAR's rules. So that's why there's this huge level of uncertainty. All right, now we're following this new set of rules. I'm not sure where to go with that.
Well, what I'm saying, the difference between laws and rules, laws are black and white. It's clear one way or it's clear another way. With a rule like this, as it changes in different marketplaces, like federal rules are federal rules. State rules are applicable to that state but not another, right? We've got this rule coming down that 1.5, 1.6 million people are interpreting in a different way, and it impacts the entire population of the United States. So you could have 50,000 different ways to interpret things and what might be right or perceived as right and what's wrong. And in the end, really, we don't have evidence and clear guidance on exactly how each piece will apply. It's take a scenario, step back and look at it, and based on these policies or these rules, what am I supposed to do here? Which foot should I step with?
Right. And the hard part is all the little things already coming through or slipping through the cracks that, committees and whoever's drafted up documents of various state associations. I mean, there's all these issues already coming to light just in the first couple of weeks, right, that we're working through. Tell me about a couple of those that you've experienced so far. I know that there's been a few and how we're working with them and what our agents should be doing.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the conversations I've had is regarding these buyer rep agreements, these representation agreements.
I mean, that's the biggest shift in rule change.
Huge.
I mean, that's the crux of everything.
I mean, there's so many states where buyer representation buyer listing agreements were commonplace, but not here in Florida.
Where? That was like the Northeast, right? Oregon.
Well, there's about 18 states.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, Colorado always required some type of an agreement between buyer and agent, but that was a state law, and that's still there. It still applies.
At what point? Before showing?
No, see, that's a different story. It's not at showing. So now you have to...
Was it done as part of the contract?
Part of the agreement, correct.
That's a lot different.
Huge variation. And now you have to get somebody to sign on the dotted line that they're working with you before they even really know you. That's like back to arranged marriages. Like, is the consumer contacting the broker who says, "Oh, you're going to be with Mary, and here you go, sign the agreement with Mary, and now you're married."
Right.
Married to Mary.
So how do you think this is going to play out? I mean, real estate has always been such a huge relationship business. I don't think that'll ever change. Do you think that top buyers agents now stand a chance to pick up more market share? I mean, how's it gonna look? There's so many different scenarios. There's people that are thinking about buying and want to establish a relationship with someone, and they kind of have a long process to go through. They may want to start looking at homes, but know very well that they need a job before they can do it, or they're going to relocate, or that they have to work on credit issues if they're working on a mortgage. There's all these different scenarios, and agents have always been so good at understanding those scenarios, and at times being very patient with clients, but starting to show them properties. Do you think that an agent, is that still going to work, or do you think that people aren't going to want to sign an agreement if they're not actually ready to purchase? How do you see that playing out?
I think it's a false sense of security, where an agent may sign with a buyer and have an exclusive agreement with them, right, for 6 months, let's say. But we know that the timeline of a buyer can take longer than 6 months. You brought up credit repair issues, evidence of income issues. And a lot of times that extends way past 6 months.
Right.
So
people looking for second homes and all types of
scenarios. So do you get them to sign an agreement today and work with them through that? Are they going to want to sign an agreement today when they can't buy? They can't feasibly go and actually look and purchase something? And then are you actually tying them up and you're giving them guidance, you're giving them professional services and help shape them and align them in a way where they'd be able to buy? And do you have an agreement in place? Do you not have an agreement in place? I think there's just so many business models and methods that agents will come to. But you brought up those top agents. I feel that the agents who have done the research, they've had conversations, and they feel comfortable with what they're supposed to be doing now, those agents are going to capture more market share. They're going to be able to convey that value and convey that point to a consumer to make them feel comfortable.
They can always overcome those objections a little easier than less seasoned agents who just haven't faced that many challenges.
Yeah, and I find that those agents were starting to prepare back in the first quarter of this year when the settlement first came out. They were trying to wrap their head around why. How is this going to impact my business? Then you've got the part-time agents that are just coming to terms with it now. I mean, that's why those 3 weeks before the 17th was so busy, is you had people coming out saying, hey, compensation's not in my MLS, what happened? And they didn't know any of the backstory with this, and you have to start from ground zero and explain everything along the way.
Right.
But once somebody grasps that concept of, here are the various types of agreements you can sign with a buyer and why each one, on the professional side, they're getting that. The consumer has no idea. The consumer has no idea. And while this was put in place to help the consumer and be more transparent, I think it's hurting them.
It's definitely going to hurt them. I mean, the first thing I thought, and we're yet to see how this plays out, is that this affects the first-time home buyers and lower-income buyers the most, right? People who either may not have the business savvy, the access to legal advice, or therefore not comfortable signing any type of buyer brokerage agreement, especially if we're in a hot market and sellers are deciding, hey, we don't have to offer any compensation to a listing broker or on the buyer side. How are those people going to get access to that house? How are they going to submit a competitive offer? You're handcuffing a buyer's agent, and it's going to hurt those people the most. And, you know, while we're working through this first few weeks of the policy change, there's going to be cyclical changes with this. I mean, we've already seen for our entire careers in real estate, I mean, it's nearly 20 years, the commissions have always been negotiable and always adjusted based on the market. The market has always dictated commissions, always. When I first started in 2005 here in South Florida, the market was so hot, you couldn't put a property on the MLS without getting multiple offers within the first day. So what happened? You adjusted to the market. So my concern is, you know, how these different market cycles are going to affect lower income or first time home buyers and what the solution for that is.
Well, no matter what's decided on how much compensation is paid or not paid or offered or not offered, right? If a seller is in a certain price point, let's say they're in, that's crazy, starter homes in Florida right now, you're talking $400,000 to $600,000, right? Say you're in that price point and your primary consumer that's going to buy your property is a first time home buyer. They're scrounging just enough together to do their 3.5% down payment plus their closing costs, and they're just barely squeaking into the property. The last FHA I did, the guy ended up with a couple $1,000s and it left in his bank account. You're buying a house, it's kind of a scary
time, right?
Scary. Yeah. So imagine the seller doesn't offer any compensation or a concession to help the buyer with that compensation. Your house is taken off their list. They can't afford to make an offer on your property and go through.
Right.
There needs to be something that's helping their representative, and those people have to have representation. They don't legally need to.
But what about when that buyer that doesn't have the money loves a house, finds it, they can purchase it, but they're not willing to pay the agent, and they can't afford to pay the agent who's worked with someone for potentially 6 months, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years. Agents are working with a single customer. They're not going to get paid for all of that work.
I have a perfect scenario for you. So a friend of mine was working with a VA buyer. They looked at homes for 2 years. They had enough money put away, and then they just hit this time crunch that they had gotten pregnant. So they're expecting a child now, and they're back out looking for homes with a lot of seriousness. And the market shifts, et cetera. They weren't willing to overpay. They couldn't overpay during the post-COVID era, when prices were so elevated because nobody was taking VA offers, which is crazy in itself. But then you get to what we're dealing with right now, and the home they loved was not offering compensation. And at that time, VA buyers couldn't be charged anything. So you have no compensation being offered to the representative who worked for 2 years, showing them, I think the number was 62 homes in 2 years. And they love this home. The price works, but they can't afford the representation. So the agent's put into a tough spot of saying, do I want to do what's best for you, or am I working as a professional? And they were willing to step aside and not take compensation. The buyer says that's not fair. So they were willing to walk away from that property and not go through with their dream home for starting their family. Fortunately, the seller came back.
I mean, doesn't that seem like a broken system
It's broken.
to be put in that position?
Well, you're talking about protecting the public. You get these people, for example, a veteran who has served and could have given their life for our country, and turn around and they can't even buy a house.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it doesn't seem right. While we're on the topic of affordability, have you seen the presidential candidate Kamala Harris's new economic policy for first-time homebuyers?
I have not.
One thing I'm curious on what your take on this, because listen, no matter what your political beliefs are, we're all for the realtor party, right? We want.
I wasn't sure where you were going for a second.
You'll never know. But no, we want to help with the affordability crisis. And the way I see it is, real estate values have gone up significantly, right? But they always kind of have. But we've outpaced wages potentially there. Interest rates. One of the things that people don't talk about all the time is they only talk about value and interest rates. That's all gone up. But we've seen massive inflation in the insurance markets, almost across the country, countrywide, right? But especially in coastal areas or places like Colorado that have been experiencing a lot of fires or hail. There's very few places that have not seen, insurance is doubling, right? You have insurance, you have, overall maintenance costs, everything has skyrocketed. Property taxes have gone up and continue to go up. But Kamala Harris's plan that she announced was a $25,000 credit for all first-time buyers, handing out that cash for people to buy. My initial instinct was that'll just create more competition and more of an inflationary environment rather than solve some of the issues that are causing the unaffordability crisis. What do you think about if there was a program to offer $25,000 to first-time homebuyers?
I mean, I don't think that's really going to help that much, personally. So in the state of Florida, we have the Live Local Act, where there's millions and millions of dollars that have been funded into this affordable housing fund, right? The Live Local Act, where anybody who resides and works for a company in the state of Florida can apply for some of those funds. They've been as high as $200 million in that fund, and they get depleted within a matter of a couple months. And that is up to, I believe the number is $50,000 on a first-time buyer going in, and they can get that grant for $50,000. No payments on it, no interest, nothing like that.
Wow.
But if they go refi or they go sell the property, that gets repaid
It's
back.
paid back.
Correct.
So do they have to qualify for the home like they normally would?
Yeah, they do. So, but that's not really helping the problem. The problem is post-ownership. Like, you can get into a home, that's fine. Let's say we created 1 million homes at $200,000, and it was really in the open marketplace, could have been a $400,000 home. Even the person who's qualifying for that $200,000 home, once they close and they move in, the carrying expenses just to own a home is what is pricing people out of property.
Right. I mean, so it's not just first-time homebuyers. We're talking about, and not just homes, property, commercial properties, everything. We're talking about an affordability crisis. And, so many people that I know that have owned homes for a very long time, some without even mortgages, the elderly people are going underinsured or uninsured because they can't afford the new prices. So
not even that. You talk about Century Village, for example, or across the street from where I live. But the majority of people going in there, obviously they're older. It's a 55-plus community. They're on fixed incomes, if any, and they go in, they own their property outright. But because of all of the insurance expenses and inspections and feasibility studies, et cetera, for the entire community, they're forced to increase the maintenance fees.
What's up with all these insurance inspections? I mean, how frustrating is that when you have to pay higher insurance and then they're like, hey, we need another inspection. And they come constantly, at least once a year, and inspect your home.
Well, you think about it. Why are they doing that, though? Why are they doing these inspections?
Well, what they say is to mitigate their fraud risk because they want to have documentation on the condition of the property year round. A lot of the inspections that I've done, mind you, I've never made a property claim in my life.
Are you a serial claimer?
I'm thinking about becoming one. I've never made a property claim on anything in my life or any of my properties. And the rates of, home ownerships, I know a lot of people are complaining that it's doubled, sometimes even more, but on commercial properties, our building here is quadrupled. it's quadrupled, right? And that takes a huge swing. I mean, this all gets passed down to anyone that's renting a home. We wonder why rental rates are up so high. It's often confused as landlord greed, but it's really just to afford their mortgage on the property.
Cost of ownership, yeah.
It's the cost of ownership.
Yeah.
And I urge people to be a little bit more transparent with that, because there's this whole notion out there that there needs to be more rent controls. But if you do that, landlords will go out of business. It's not possible. I mean, I know that I went from profiting on a few of my rentals that I have just down the street to now I'm losing a couple $100s a month because I have such good tenants. And I don't want to raise rates on them because they have been loyal and they're great tenants. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the squeeze is real. Some people can't afford, $200, $300, or $400, losing that on each property that they own. They do it to have an investment and maybe even make a little money, not lose money, right?
Yeah, Mother Earth hasn't really cooperated with us either.
No.
When you have these big storms, insurance companies take massive hits.
Yep.
And I believe a lot of these inspections, it's disguised as mitigating risks. But in reality, they're looking for the policies where they are at higher risk of payout.
Of course. I mean, every time they come and inspect, they want me to change, like at our ranch property, they did an inspection 3 weeks ago, and they came back, they said, all of this stuff needs to be cleared out, removed within 30 days, and you have to send us pictures or we're canceling your policy. It's a ranch. So when you have a ranch, there's going to be a wheelbarrow outside somewhere, right? But the property's being remodeled. So there's impact windows leaning against the house, the contractor's saws and tables and everything like that. I would think you'd be happy, like, hey, good, if we could make it through those next 30 days.
I just want to know if they asked you to remove any cows, bulls, sheep, chickens.
Just this bull right here.
Mini horses.
That's funny. We have the No Bull Broker Content podcast here, so I think we do have to get you out there on a bull. But anyways, back to these inspections. So when it comes back to the affordability crisis, I wish we did have leaders somewhere talking about how can we really help drive down some of these costs that are really hurting homeowners, existing homeowners, and preventing new people from coming in the market. And an idea that I've always had is, we have the National Flood Program. And like I said, it's not just Florida or Texas or Louisiana that suffers from these increases due to the amount of named storms that we've had the last several years. California has had multiple wildfires, and their insurance is skyrocketing. Colorado, Oklahoma, all these tornadoes, hail damage. The insurance across the country is going crazy. So what if everyone paid in based on the value of their home into a national program? And instead of having geographical areas that carry all the burden and insurance companies that can't afford to come in. I mean, I wonder do you know what percentage of insurance policies are on Citizens, the state covered insurance now?
In Florida?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the vast majority.
It's a lot,
yeah.
Right? There's only a couple of people even writing homeowners.
I gotta say it's at least 80-90%.
Yeah. I would like to think that there could be a federal program that could lower the cost on almost every single homeowner and just make it more reasonable and cover. Because at the end of the day, the federal government's going to come in and bail these guys out like they always do when. So, and I think 70% of claims in hurricanes are due to flood.
So do you think it's fair for a ranch-style property or a ranch owner that may not be in a flood zone to be subsidizing and paying for someone who's buying a waterfront home in Miami?
Well, it depends. How many ranch owners get knocked out by tornadoes and never had catastrophic tornado insurance because they didn't think they would have it, right? And if you're talking about a ranch owner in Florida, you're just as susceptible to a hurricane, inland as you are on the coast. Not the flooding, right? But I don't know. It's
for some reason I was going to throw out Des Moines, Iowa, but tornadoes are real. So
well, let's take Des Moines, Iowa, right? So does everyone have flood insurance out there?
I sincerely doubt it.
Probably not, but to some people, yeah, and it's because of a pipe burst or something happens. That's what covers it. Flood. I mean, we have a family property up in Copper Mountain. We were not insured properly. We were underinsured on it.
That's not Des Moines, Iowa.
It's not Des Moines, Iowa, but you're at 9,700 foot altitude and a pipe burst. We weren't there for 2 weeks. No one discovered it. Flooded the entire house. Obviously, flood insurance is the only thing that we had that could assist with that. But let's say you're in Des Moines, Iowa. Do you have any risk of a hurricane? No. But what is the assessment and risk for a tornado and flood? and what's the value of your property. And maybe you pay $100 a month or $100 a year, whatever that number comes out to, versus someone in Florida who is like, in a coastal flood area that has flooded twice in the last 2 years and is susceptible to hurricanes. Maybe that person pays $2,000 a year, right? But the idea is just to protect everyone and balance it out and make sure people are covered.
So I want to go back to that elephant in the room we were talking about, the NAR settlement. I want to go back to that. So you've always been someone when there's a challenge in the market or a shift or a change or a pivot. We're going to say that trigger word, right? So there's a pivot. When any change comes, opportunity comes. And how are you promoting, or how are you telling people the opportunity is showing itself with the changes that are afoot here?
For our business or for the industry in general?
Yes.
Listen, anytime there is a major shift like this, if it works on the side of transparency, I like it, right? I believe that buyers and sellers should understand exactly who's paying what, when, and where, right? And the whole crux of this antitrust claim was buyers agents saying, hey, my services are free to the buyers. That was, it's easy to say that, like, it means, buyer, you don't have to come out of pocket to pay me, but obviously he's getting paid from somewhere, right? So I think there's a big opportunity in being more transparent. I think there's a huge opportunity for realtors. What it's doing right now, what you already see, is it's just raising the bar for the level of professionalism and definitely business savvy. And when 75% of agents come into this market and fail within this first year, we've always debated how can you, without making the barrier to entry too difficult, how can you elevate realtors and get a higher success rate, right? And I think that teaching real sales and overcoming objections and transparency will ultimately help. Not to say it's not a total bleeping pain in the ass right now. I mean, we're feeling the pains.
It's a bleeping pain.
It's a bleeping pain in the ass. But I think that's a huge opportunity, because if the training changes and people realize that they have to elevate it a little bit more, I think that ultimately will be good for the consumers.
I agree. I mean, we've got 275,000 licensed agents in the state of Florida, and say 225,000 of them are realtors as opposed to real estate agents, right? And Florida, being the free state that it is, they're not going to put in more regulations. They're not going to raise the bar as far as how to get your license or who can get their license. But it's creating this new element where you have to not only have your license, you have to know how to navigate what's out there to not only protect yourself, but be able to educate and be a true resource for your consumers. So by requiring all of these practice changes and the new normal, the quote unquote new normal, it's requiring a higher level of professionalism and a more broad knowledge base to be able to guide a consumer through all of these steps and how they can in turn take that buyer rep agreement and negotiate it into a transaction. It's requiring actual knowledge and negotiation capabilities, as opposed to, hey, my cousin got their license, I'm going to throw it under them because the seller's paying them, and they're just taking money off the table. Why not help my cousin?
Right.
Whereas now you'd have to sign an agreement with your cousin that, hey, I'm going to pay you. And who are you going to pay? The person who doesn't do any transactions, or someone who knows how to navigate things?
Absolutely.
The professionals hold themselves higher, and
I mean, like we've said from the very beginning, when we thought this was a possibility, I said we need to create a buyer's agent presentation, right? Just how listing agents always come with a full presentation so that they can get that listing, because they know they're going into a listing appointment and there's going to be competition, right? So.
Yep, I definitely.
What is that, bull juice?
I just pulled that out of the bull,
out of the bull's butt. The no bull butt broker. What is that?
Cheers. It is a Reposado tequila. It is Guy Fieri's Reposado tequila. Am I allowed to say that? Guy Fieri's? Am I promoting that? That's okay.
Who gives a shit? But another big thing that I was thinking about with the low agent success rate, especially in the first year. I think one of the biggest reasons why is because agents, someone will get their license for various reasons, right? But so many people come from the W-2 environment, having worked a career for so long, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to get a real estate license and go work for a real estate brokerage, and they carry that W-2 mentality. And you know how entrepreneurial it can be. It's the same feels. You have to, agents work 24/7. It's not just when they're with their clients. You go home, you're thinking about work, right? And that's what running a business is like. It never goes away. There's never that relief. And I think what a lot of people feel is there's either too much pressure or they don't know how to handle that, or they're just simply not taking the steps that it takes to become successful as an entrepreneur. When you get outside of that W-2 mindset.
Yeah, I think it's so much the latter of what you just said. They're in the, I have a job, I'm showing up and I'm doing what I have to do. When you get your real estate license, you're opening a business, regardless of what brokerage that you work with. You're opening your own business. And, for example, you might be out at dinner and you hear a conversation in your ear. The W-2 employee is continuing on in that conversation at dinner. They're not getting their interest piqued by a conversation at the bar. Whereas the realtor, the entrepreneur, hears that, gets up, walks over, and starts a conversation because their business is their life and their life is their business. Right. And you carry that wherever you go.
I mean, how many times have I, used to text you 10 o'clock at night, I have an idea. Are you going to be in the office tomorrow morning? I need to talk to you, right? We're always thinking about ideas or changes. Just this morning I said, interesting concept. What that guy's doing, we have this software, we can get this going instantly, right? We never get to stop. Agents who don't stop and are always improving are the ones who are going to accelerate and beat out the other 275,000 agents that are their competition. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, there's a few of them. There's a few of them in Florida. So you just brought up a good point there. With change comes opportunity, and sometimes that opportunity takes shape in the form of technology. So how are the hot pieces like AI and various technology startups or prop tech companies coming up, how is that going to change the game? Is that a game changer or is it a tool?
Right now it's a tool. It's a game-changing tool if you're using it right.
I know a few game-changing tools.
That could go a couple different ways.
We're going to keep that to individuals who act like tools.
I use it for a lot of things in day-to-day life. It can expedite a lot of different things. You know how I used to love writing the letters from the CEO, right? Mm-hmm. And just notes to the staff or notes to anything I would write. I've always actually enjoyed since I was younger writing, and I still do. But when you're in a time crunch and you don't have the creative availability, ChatGPT step in. A few things and it's boom, and it gives me inspiration, or I can just use what it says. But normally it's the inspiration, right? Because our time is limited nowadays. So AI right now is a tool, but I do think it's a game changer at some point. I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years when we'll wrap our heads around
how we can really leverage and empower people with AI.
Right, when a real estate brokerage agents are listing agents are robots. And it's, hey, we parked this one at your house for a flat fee. It has all the information. It can do tours. It can provide security. It'll give you feedback. You can listen to the whole conversation after, whatever it may be. These robots are already out there, and the technology is there. When they're widely adopted or affordable, I don't know, should we call it Elon?
It's crazy how quickly technology has evolved in real estate. It wasn't long ago that we had the paper books that you'd have to go pick up for what was active in the multiple listing service, right? It was the book.
When I first started, it had just gone online and the systems were hokey, and the older agents were like, "Can't we just keep the office book?"
Well, anytime change, right?
I was faxing documents, and now we're talking about robots showing homes.
I used a fax machine last week. I did. I have to send another one now. Yeah. And that's our state regulatory agency that cannot get with an upload of a document or emailing in a document. You have to fax it or
only a government entity can get away with that. I swear to God.
Which is crazy. Think about the technology.
And who are they helping?
Think about the technology we have on the governmental level, right? You need to do a title search on a property, and you have to get somebody to go down, look in the papers, look in the files, pull it all out, flip through the paper to figure out if there's clear title or not. Whereas if they embrace technology and digitizing records, you could get clear title in seconds, right? The 30 to 45 days of getting somebody approved for a mortgage or clearing title, that doesn't have to be there. It can all be reduced. And it's kind of funny because the government has to take a mirror and look at their own processes instead of investing.
Well, they simply don't have the competition. Like that's the best thing about private enterprise. Private enterprise moves this world forward, it moves this country forward, and government has to play catch up once those services or softwares or whatever are available to them and they pay for them, right?
Imagine if we had...
They're not going to innovate it. They're not going to be anywhere near the level of innovation or in terms of timing, chronologically, they adopt things 5-10 years after it comes out.
Private companies thrive and grow on making things better, making things more efficient, making things more frictionless for the individual member of the public. And the government has no motivation to do so.
They could, if they wanted to, they could probably listen to this conversation right now. But you have to fax them information if you want to get something to them.
They are listening.
It's unbelievable.
And I guarantee I'm going to get pop-up ads later on about AI and technology, etc. Maybe Guy Fieri's tequila is going to show up on my Amazon list.
Everyone always talks about that. It's crazy. Liz and I have been talking about getting a Sleep Number bed that has the two sides and adjustable.
Those look super cool.
We're both hyper-focused on healthy sleep right now. And we started talking about it in the car ride, and then she got targeted on her phone for, I forget the name of it now, but it's an entry level. They claim they have 80% of everything Sleep Number has. The bed adjusts, it has heat cool, it has everything other than a couple proprietary things that Sleep Number has, right? And it's $1,500 Labor Day sale, so it's a quarter of the cost of the Sleep Number. She mentions it to me in the house. I was like, interesting. We'll have to look into it. Yesterday, I drive home, separate from her. I get to our home and I open up my phone. First thing that pops up on Facebook was an ad for that bed. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well,
there's actually an explanation for that one, but
what is it?
Well, if you guys are on the same phone plan, for example,
we are.
You have similar IP addresses, or at least the base of it, the skeleton. So if she actually
if
she looked at it on her phone, there's a chance that it connects back to yours for your IP address while you're searching, not on Wi-Fi. If you're on Wi-Fi, that's automatic right there. You're already connected. Anybody in that home could probably get that ad.
Yeah.
But independently, that's separate.
Which is incredible, right? Because I almost clicked on it and bought the damn thing.
It's insane.
I was like, I'm ready, and I was like, wait, I'm just gonna.
It's incredibly effective. It's long been a very effective advertising method for people to do like affiliate marketing or referrals, where they'll essentially embed a cookie, not a delicious hot steamy cookie, but a digital cookie, on your device, and then follow you around and see what else you're doing, and then take that data and sell it back to other companies to better market to a consumer like you.
Yeah.
And that's all changing. Google's changed all privacy practices. You'll no longer be able to use those little opt-in cookies. You'll now have to have like a unique, you've seen all those banners pop up on the websites and say, do you allow cookies?
Accept all cookies,
reject all,
right.
Yeah, so that's all changing.
What do you normally select?
I'm stupid. I hit approve all. I just want to see the website.
Yeah, I normally just hit accept all also. I want the full experience. Well, there used to be some areas that were restricted if you didn't. Is it still like that?
Is that the 18 over websites?
No.
So the interesting part is, so do you want the internet to show you?
Do you buy anything on the 18 and over websites?
Never.
So have you ever been resold anything?
No comment. So if you do want to be browsing the internet, not give any of your information, which a lot of people feel that way, but do you want to be browsing and get random advertisements, things that may or may not appeal to you? Or do you want something that's kind of catered to your interests or something you were looking at?
What's the last thing you bought that you were targeted for? Can you remember?
The last thing I bought, I was targeted for. No, I can't remember.
Have you ever been out on a late night or having fun and been targeted and forgot?
Probably. I've ordered many of things post midnight. And I guarantee those were spontaneous. Ad showed up in front of me. Hey, I was looking at that. Da, 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 and ordered it.
I did that with a flamethrower.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Proud owner of a flamethrower. Please do not trespass on that farm.
No, it's here.
Oh, even better.
At the office.
Is that for when the insurance lapse and they
Yes,
yes,
it is.
Oh man. So condos are changing drastically at the end of this year. And we talked before about people getting priced out of their homes, right? Not being able to afford things anymore.
Yeah.
The condo market, I am making a prediction right here. We've had a lot of inventory increase on condos, much more than we had during going back pre-COVID. But I think in 2025, we're going to have the highest market inventory on condos than we've had in over a decade.
I mean, the HOA fees are through the roof, right? But how much more than single-family homes? I mean, it's insurance, taxes, everything else going up. But condos have had these massive assessments, especially with the 40-year inspections, right?
We had the tragedy at the Champlain Towers that really caused a lot of legislation change.
Yeah.
And now with these inspections...
Do you think that's a major contributor?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So these additional...
My mom's condo is all torn up right now. They had to redo all the balconies, a lot of the steel, and had it not been for that, their inspection wasn't due for another little while, but something came up in order to renew their insurance. They were required, or something came up in an inspection.
Yeah, those assessments are huge.
Yeah, huge.
And as soon as that assessment comes out, it doesn't matter if you sell or not, you're still going to be obligated to pay that expense.
Right. And speaking of landlords of condos that rent them out, I mean, it's hard enough to rent them with your HOA board, right? Mm-hmm. And, my mom is renting hers, and I know her rent has to be way below the carrying cost of that unit, especially with an assessment.
One thing that frustrates me about associations is the 30-day approval process. You get somebody's paperwork today.
Speaking of technology.
You get their background today. You get their income, whatever your restrictions are, you get that all today. Why does it take a month to throw that piece of paper?
Normally it's because they only want to review them when they get together for their monthly board meeting, because it requires a vote on the tenants. Why they can't just have a subcommittee or someone who does the approvals based on the set criteria, I don't know. Very few of them do, and it works fine. I mean, ultimately, the majority of these ones are looking for, criminal checks, credit requirements, whatever it is. It doesn't take a committee to vote on that. These are normally just rubber stamp votes, right? So it's really frustrating.
Not a criminal or something.
Well, it makes it difficult. So most condos should come up with a mechanism to have, whether it's the president or whoever wants to volunteer, to kind of rubber stamp these through. If there's a red flag, hey, this may take 30 days, and go back to them. But I mean, it's so frustrating, isn't it?
It's
and
crazy.
That hurts the condo market.
It's crazy that we were able to take the courts, district courts, federal courts, from in-person due process to Zoom, but yet we can't get associations to make a similar shift. It must be something, just higher restrictions in associations than our entire legal system in the country.
I can't think of anything worse than condo associations.
I can think of a few. Timeshares, to name one.
Timeshare.
I'd rather deal with a condo association than sit at a timeshare demonstration for 3 hours.
I volunteered for my condo association in Denver once, and I resigned after, I think it was 120 days. The phone calls and the complaints and the crap I would get, I quickly realized why it was normally older, retired people who would volunteer for that position, maybe someone looking for something to do, because I was working close to full-time. I was a full-time student. My work took me up to the mountain 3 days a week. I was a ski instructor, so nice. I would leave and go up there. And I would get phone call. I got a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning once complaining that there was dog poop in the hallway.
That's priority issue.
I won't say the person's name, but I remember the next morning at like 2 a.m. I called him back and he didn't answer. And I war dialed and he answered. He's like, hello. And I was like, hey, I just want to let you know the dog shit was cleaned up. Click. And I was like, this isn't for me.
I feel like you would have said it. See, in today's day, when you have the technology, you can have AI auto call that guy right. Every day for the next month.
Right.
I want to thank you for being unfiltered and no bull at all times, and can't wait till the next episode.
Are you saying noble or no bull?
Yes.
Because it says no bull.
Yes, it's no bull, but it's very noble to have no bull.
I enjoyed it. Hopefully, some of the people who listen tell us give us some feedback and what they want us to talk about in the future.
Absolutely.
We'll always bring it unfiltered. We're here to help, right?
Let's do it.
All right, Yanni.